March 27th, 1977. Two of the largest commercial passenger planes in the world are making their way towards the Canary Islands, specifically the island of Gran Canaria. However, due to an obstruction within the airport terminal, the two aircraft, along with many others, had to divert. Both aircraft diverted to Tenerife North Ciudad de la Laguna Airport, 60 nautical miles northwest of their intended destination. However, a series of human errors and poor weather would result in the loss of 583 people, which stands today as the deadliest aviation accident in history. November 736 Papa Alpha, a Boeing 747-121 operated by the airline giant Pan Am, is on the ground at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City. The flight had originated from Los Angeles and will be departing shortly, bound for Aeropuerto de Gran Canaria in the Canary Islands. In the cockpit, the left seat houses the captain, Victor Grubbs, a 56-year-old captain with over 21,000 hours of flight experience, with 564 hours on the Boeing 747. He's the pilot in command on this flight. In the right seat is First Officer Robert Bragg, age 39. He has about 10,800 hours under his name, with 2,736 on the type. In the flight engineer spot is George Warrens, age 46. He's the most experienced of the flight crew, with 15,210 hours of flight time, though he has only 559 on the type. The aircraft departed New York at 7:42 Zulu, operated as Pan Am Flight 1736, with 317 passengers and 9 crew members. On the other side of the Atlantic, Papa Hotel Bravo Uniform Foxtrot, a Boeing 747-206 Bravo, nicknamed Rhine, is taking off from Amsterdam Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands, also bound for Aeropuerto de Gran Canaria. The time is 11 hours Zulu. The aircraft is expected to arrive at Gran Canaria in just under 3 hours. There are 234 passengers and 14 crew members on board. In the left seat is 50-year-old Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten. He is the pilot in command on this flight. He has 11,700 hours of flight time, with 1,545 hours on the Boeing 747. On the right seat is First Officer Klaus Mears, age 42. He has 9,200 hours of flight time, with 95 hours on the Boeing 747, making him the least experienced of the crew on board. In the back is flight engineer Willem Schroeder. He has 17,031 hours of flight time, with 543 hours on the Boeing 747. The flight crew are operating KLM Flight 4805, a route connecting Amsterdam to Gran Canaria. At Aeropuerto de Gran Canaria, the destination airport for the two jumbo jets, the terminal is invaded by members of the Movimiento para la Autodeterminación y Independencia del Archipiélago Canario, or MPAIAC. MPAIAC is a separatist group based in the Canary Islands. Their objection was to secede from Spanish influence and make the Canary Islands an independent country. On that day, at time 13 hours and 15 minutes Zulu, the members of the MPAIAC detonated a bomb inside of the terminal in a flower shop. Nobody was killed in the bombing. However, in fear of another attack, air traffic controllers at Aeropuerto de Gran Canaria forced inbound aircraft to divert. Many aircraft, including Pan Am Flight 1736 and KLM Flight 4805, were told to divert to Tenerife nor Ciudad de la Laguna Airport. Tenerife is the western neighboring island of Gran Canaria. In 1977, the island of Tenerife only had one operational airport, Tenerife nor Ciudad de la Laguna Airport. The airport has expanded to accommodate larger aircraft, but in 1977, the airport was smaller, barely hosting room for a 747 on the ramp, let alone two. When KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 landed, they had to position the aircraft for shutdown on the only active taxiway Tenerife had, at the threshold of runway 12. KLM Flight 4805 landed at 1338 Zulu, and Pan Am Flight 1736 landed at 1415 Zulu. In a taste of cruel irony, both aircraft were positioned next to each other at the edge of the threshold of runway 12. While both aircraft were on the ground, this photo was taken. This is the last known photo showing both aircraft in a state of airworthiness. In the foreground is KLM Flight 4805, and in the background is Pan Am Flight 1736. Side note, I tried to find who took this photo, but in the process, I found multiple names responsible for it. If anyone knows, please let me know. While the two jumbo jets are on the ground at Tenerife, bomb squads in Gran Canaria are scavenging the airport for a second bomb. After roughly an hour, bomb squads clear the airport, stating a second bomb has not been located, thus allowing the continuation of regular commercial service. Aeropuerto de Gran Canaria reopens to commercial service at hour 15 Zulu. Upon bearing witness to the news, Pan Am Flight 1736 requests to start up and taxi for takeoff. However, congestion at the runway threshold is preventing the flight from taxiing. Almost 2 hours later, traffic has cleared the threshold. The only obstruction is KLM Flight 4805. At time 1656 Zulu, KLM Flight 4805 requests a taxi to runway 30 for departure. Air traffic control clears them to backtrack runway 30, then line up and wait at the end of the runway. After a little bit of confusion from Flight 4805, they begin their taxi at 1658 Zulu. 4 minutes later, Pan Am Flight 1736 requests to backtrack runway 12 for takeoff on runway 30. Air traffic control returns to Flight 1736 with permission to backtrack runway 12, exit Charlie 4, then hold short of runway 30. Charlie 4 is the easternmost taxiway protruding into the edge of runway 12-30. As Pan Am Flight 1736 enters runway 12, a thick fog bank rolls over the airport. The fog is very thick. According to the Netherlands Aviation Safety Board's final report, the fog reduced the pilot's and ATC's visibility to below 100 meters or 328 feet, meaning that nobody at the airfield knew where anyone was. As KLM Flight 4805 was halfway down runway 12-30, they requested a status report regarding the lights on the runway centerline. ATC reported back to Flight 4805, stating that the runway center lights were not in service. They continued their journey regardless. KLM Flight 4805 lines up with runway 30, committing to a 180-degree turn before holding position on the runway. At 17:05 and 44 seconds, Flight 4805 declares to ATC that it is ready for takeoff. The KLM 4805 is now ready for takeoff, and we're waiting for our ATC clearance. At 17:06 and 8 seconds, Tenerife Tower responds to Flight 4805. KLM 870 you are cleared to the Papa Beacon. Climb to and maintain flight level 90. Right turn after takeoff. Proceed with heading 040 until intercepting the 325 radial from Las Palmas VOR. At 17:06 and 17 seconds, KLM Flight 4805 responds. Roger, sir. We're cleared to the Papa Beacon, flight level 90. Right turn out 040 until intercepting the 325, and we're now at takeoff. By this point, a catastrophic misunderstanding had taken place. Air traffic control authorized the clearance to follow the departure route after rotation, but they had not cleared KLM Flight 4805 for takeoff. What's the difference? Today, a standard takeoff clearance would be formatted as follows. KLM Flight 4805, cleared for takeoff, runway 30, maintain flight level 90, turn right heading 040 when intercepting the 325 radial Las Palmas VOR. However, ATC's instructions did not clear them for takeoff. Had they been cleared, ATC would have added that detail to their transmission. Regardless, KLM Flight 4805 began its takeoff roll. In response to Flight 4805's transmission, both Air Traffic Control and Pan Am Flight 1736 responded to the transmission almost simultaneously. Stand by for takeoff. I will call you. And we're still taxiing down the runway, the Clipper 1736. After both transmissions, confusion grows in the cockpit of Flight 4805. The flight engineer, Willem Schroeder, asked the captain in Dutch, Is her niet afdaan? The captain's attention turns to the question from Willem Schroeder. What zeg hij? Is hier niet af die Pan American? Jawel. 9 seconds later, Pan Am Flight 1736 emerges from the fog, still on the runway. Simultaneously, Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten yanks the yoke back in an effort to take off before impacting Flight 1736. In the effort, Flight 4805's tail strikes the ground, dragging it for about 22 meters, or 72 feet. Also in an effort to avoid the oncoming aircraft, Pan Am Flight 1736 advances the throttle so they can clear Flight 4805. However, it was too late. Pan Am Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 collide at 17:06 and 50 seconds. Flight 4805 managed to get airborne before impacting. However, the aircraft did not climb high enough to avoid the collision. When Flight 4805 impacted Flight 1736, the damage done to Flight 4805 depleted lift from the aircraft, sending it back to the ground. KLM Flight 4805's collision with the ground killed all 248 people instantly. On Pan Am Flight 1736, the initial impact killed 341 people. Amazingly, 70 people survived the initial accident, including all 3 flight crew. Due to the poor visibility over the airfield, no one knew that 2 of the largest aircraft at the time had just collided, thus leaving the 70 survivors to fend for themselves. An evacuation effort had been commanded by Captain Victor Grubbs. The 70 people who survived managed to escape the aircraft. Many people had to jump out of the aircraft due to the failure of the onboard emergency equipment. Some hydraulic lines, wiring systems that power the aircraft, and other key systems on board were severed when Flight 4805 collided with Flight 1736, thus not only preventing the emergency equipment to work, but the engines were still running as the evacuation began. This was a dangerous evacuation because the engines of a Boeing 747-100, the Pratt & Whitney JT9D, can produce 45 to 56,000 pounds of thrust. When the 2 aircraft collided, Pan Am Flight 1736 was producing significant thrust to ingest someone into the engine if they weren't careful. Fortunately, the evacuation commenced uneventfully. A few minutes later, an aircraft taxiing on the ground noticed fire coming from the Charlie 4 taxiway, and air traffic control contacted the airport fire department to investigate. There, they had found the wreck of Pan Am Flight 1736 and its survivors. As the firefighters fought through the flames engulfing Pan Am Flight 1736, The fog then cleared, revealing the wreckage of KLM Flight 4805. Nine of the 70 survivors would succumb to their injuries just days after the accident, leaving the final death toll to be 583 people. To date, the disaster would be the deadliest in aviation history. Preliminary findings reported that KLM Flight 4805 had begun its takeoff roll prematurely due to a misunderstanding from air traffic control's clearance. Furthermore, some confusion was aroused in the cockpit of Flight 4805 regarding the position of Flight 1736. When Pan Am Flight 1736 was given taxi clearance, a misunderstanding arose in the cockpit regarding the exits Charlie 2 and Charlie 4. Air traffic control did not call out the specific taxiway for Flight 1736 to exit, only referring to it as, quote, the third one. Because of this call, the flight crew of Flight 1736 mistook it for, quote, the first one, or taxiway Charlie 2. A message from Flight 1736 was then broadcasted to air traffic control, which is a frequency every aircraft on the ground can hear. The flight crew of Flight 1736 requested verification if they had instructions to exit on Charlie 2, still referring to it as, quote, first and third. It is likely that KLM Flight 4805 did not receive air traffic control's corrections to Flight 1736, thus allowing room for a false sense of confirmation. Pan Am Flight 1736 did not exit on Charlie 2, and because of a thick fog bank rolling in, no one in the tower or Flight 4805 would know the exact position of the aircraft. In October 1978, a year and a half after the accident, the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, released its final report on the accident, citing weather, pilot error, and a lack of proper communication as all factors that contributed to the accident. In response to this, the NTSB gave the following recommendations to airlines and airspaces worldwide. Strict professional terminology to prevent misunderstandings, including extended caution on the usage of air traffic control's takeoff clearance. This was an attempt to eliminate the probability of a premature takeoff from occurring. Next, the NTSB proposed for more explicit readbacks to air traffic control, mandating pilots to read back ATC's instructions as told to the pilots. Additionally, the NTSB recommended a safe space of time to pass between an ATC clearance and a pilot's execution, ensuring that if any unnecessary clearance was returned, there would be time to correct it. Finally, the NTSB emphasized the need for more strict cockpit resource management and cockpit discipline, requesting that all flight crew be more tentative on the flight deck and mandating the need for communication inside the cockpit. The events of March 27th, 1977 forever live on in the skies above us 49 years later. Flying has been made much safer because of these accidents. However, as many people say, including in the industry, every rule and regulation is often written within blood.